One thing has become absolutely clear. U.S. Postmaster General Louis Dejoy has to be fired, has to be prevented from helping Donald Trump sabotage the United States Postal Service and not only push it towards privatization, but also tamper with the 2020 election. That's what we're seeing right now. There's no need to sugarcoat it. There's no need to pretend there's a shade of gray here. There's no need to say, oh, it's more complex than that. What you're seeing right now in the United States is a two-pronged effort by Trump and Dejoy to enrich themselves and their fellow elite friends by giving the public post office away to capitalist corporate interests on the one hand, and to tamper with the election on the other. Trump knows that not only are his voters more likely to go out and vote in person in November than Biden's prospective voters, but that in general, whenever Americans can vote freely and easily, Republicans lose. The main source of Republican victory is voters either being disengaged or being explicitly disenfranchised. Specifically, most often, poor people and African Americans, black people, but not always. And what Trump realizes is that if every American that wants to vote gets to vote in this election, he's going to lose. So what's one way you can do that? You can make the post office functionless. You can basically ruin it and not only push the objective of privatization that you've been pushing for a while, but also make it so that at least some of the votes cast by mail don't end up counting. The Postal Service has been pulling mailboxes, has been pulling delivery boxes out of communities all over the country. The Postal Service has been pulling mail sorting machines from all over the country, hundreds of them. This will have effects everywhere. As it's been noted, potentially 46 states and the District of Columbia and DC may have such long delays that your vote won't get in time. You won't have enough time potentially to mail your ballot in to have it actually be counted. 46 states, people in 46 states may not have a right to vote safely by mail. Trump is doing that because he knows the more people that get to vote safely, the less his chances of victory. That's why they're doing it. And if you look at the effects, it is in 46 states, but there seems to be concentration in certain key areas for Donald Trump. Specifically, you've seen some pullouts in Michigan and in Ohio and in Pennsylvania. Now, those are the sort of states that often determine presidential elections. Now, not every election is the same. Not every election has the exact same swing states. Ohio has been a little bit more safe for the Republicans in the last few elections than it was back 10, 15, 20 years ago. But those are all recognized broadly as swing states. And that if you can tamper with the mail in those areas in particular, you can flip the result of the election. If the election is close, then discouraging people from voting because it's too hard and they're worried about it not counting, or making it so that legitimately voted ballots don't get counted in time and they're disproportionately Democratic voters, you can steal an election. And that's what Trump and Dejoy are trying to do. And this is beyond the fact that Dejoy still has financial interests, direct financial interests, that are far too intertwined with the delivery and logistics and mail business. That he has too many pecuniary interests. For instance, he owns large amounts of shares in companies like Amazon. And it's not unreasonable to state that either directly or indirectly, how he acts as Postmaster General might affect his own financial future. And that he has such power and such responsibility and such influence that having himself invested in those industries makes it so that even if it's just perception, his actions weakening the post office to strengthen private companies that would pick up the slack is trouble enough that you have to have somebody that clears those interests as much as possible, because if they don't, the accusation will always be there. We're dealing with very dangerous times here. Very dangerous times. I understand that the Democrats only control one of the three houses. I understand that to make a big change and actually get rid of Dejoy, who seems to be a close Trump friend and ally, you need more power. But they have to be doing something. I get it. The Republicans are obstructing most of the stuff the Democrats want to do. I get that. But they're on vacation now. The House is on vacation now. They should be in Washington. They should be in Washington every day, hammering this story, hammering the lack of stimulus for poor working and middle class Americans, and they're not doing it. And I think the people need to see it. I've seen some people like Ted Lieu basically say, we can't actually do anything. We can't actually get rid of Dejoy. We can't actually stop what he's doing. But I don't think that's a good enough response. You can use this as a political moment. We know Donald Trump is trying to rig the election. We know that he's withholding funds from the Postal Service because he wants it to fail so he can sell it off, but also because if they get the money they need, they'll be able to run the election properly, and then he'll lose. The Democrats need to be in Washington hammering this home in front of the national and international media so that it doesn't go away. And their vacation is going to limit their ability to do that. I know that Elizabeth Warren and others have launched an investigation through the Postal Office watchdog, and they're looking into Dejoy's personal financial interests and his connections to Trump. And, people are generally deserving of due process, but in this case, I think it's very clear. I don't need to wait for the results of that watchdog report. This man, Dejoy and Trump, are stealing democracy in the United States. And I'm not one to only hammer on Trump. You guys know me. I talk about the corporate Democrats when they fail. But there's no equivalency here. We're seeing something that's extremely dangerous. And by all costs, at all costs, Donald Trump must be removed from office if he's willing to tamper with democracy. Because once that genie comes out of the bottle, it's not going to go back in.